The Podcasting Dead is available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud. Make sure to subscribe for more podcasts. And while you're at it, drop us a like. If you want to help support the channel and have access to extra content, secret contests, and more, make sure to search for us on Patreon. Patreon.com/thepodcastingdead.
This is the second podcast here recently that we've come into, and I've been eating. You notice that?
That's true, man.
I'm rude. I apologize, but
it does smell good.
It's a fair. I mean, it's my favorite. One of my favorite things on the planet are those fair cinnamon buns. Like, they're humongous. They're way overpriced, and you stand in line for like an hour to get them. Mm-hmm. But man, like, this is my breakfast this morning. That's the joy of being an adult, kids. Is one day you can eat a cinnamon bun for breakfast if you wish.
Dude, I remember getting like big-ass cinnamon rolls from Subway, I think, when I was a kid. I mean, they were thick and huge.
Really?
You worked at Subway.
Yeah,
Do you remember Subway
no.
breakfast?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, dude, it was the one, not the one you worked at. It was further up the highway, same highway, but further up it, I guess.
In my town?
No, it was in out towards the airport. But no, dude, like big-ass, thick cinnamon rolls. And I was like, I mean... You definitely wouldn't have been working Subway because I was like a preteen, so you were as well. But yeah, like these sausage biscuits that were really good, that were really like wide, and these big, thick cinnamon rolls, man. I want to Google that now just to make sure that that's not like a manufactured memory, but I remember Subway breakfast.
Perfect segue. So speaking of manufactured memories and such, today we're talking about, what did you say, living in a simulation?
Yeah, man, it's it's not something I've done a ton of research in, but just certain things lately. For one thing, one of our favorite comic books, Black Hammer, just wrapped up. And that had to do largely with a simulated reality. And number two, man, I've just, granted, we live in a small town and, we have a lot of the same daily routines, go to this gas station, that restaurant. Obviously, you're going to run into the same people, but I don't know, man. It's just here lately, there's been a lot of, like, deja vu, I guess you could say.
Please do tell.
And
so you've been having a lot of deja vu.
Yeah, man, just like the same... I don't know if she's homeless, but the same panhandling lady, like it's like I run into her almost everywhere. And, panhandlers, they're usually designated to, kind of a certain area.
Kind of like drug dealers, like they have their own corner, and that's just what they work.
Yeah, and generally they're on foot, so it's not like they're driving from one end of town to the next.
Unless they're one of those fakers.
Yeah, or like giving up blowjobs or something to where they get picked up and just dropped off somewhere random. But no, this lady I would not accept any sexual favors from for any amount of money.
Oh, wow.
But,
coming from you, no offense, but...
Yeah, dude, that's how real it is, man.
Wow.
I mean, but nah, she approached me like outside the hospital not too long ago, then outside the gas station. Then I saw her outside the mall, and I mean, like I said, pretty like spread out areas. And it's just, like I said, it's just, I feel like I see the same faces. It's almost like a Doors song or something.
I used to have a lot of deja vu. I've got a book on deja vu if you ever want to borrow it. It's pretty interesting. It delves into the paranormal possibilities, but also the scientific possibilities. Like one scientific, I guess you can't say explanation. I mean, I guess it is an explanation. It's just not accepted as fact, but yeah. Is that the reason why you experience deja vu is because one eye picks up on it, it sends the information to the brain like a millisecond before the other eye does.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like you're reliving it, but within a millisecond. But I mean, I'm not like yourself. I've had points where like the deja vu to me, that's not a good enough explanation because it was a very long period. It wasn't because you have like, I feel you have two types of deja vu. You have like the momentary deja vu where it only lasts for like a second. It's almost just like a wave rushes over you and you're like, this is familiar, okay, and it's gone.
Yeah.
And then you have the deja vu to where you can almost like quote what's going to be said next. That's why the eye thing just doesn't explain it for me.
Yeah, man, it's wild. And I've heard different theories. Like they say, say we are living in a simulation. It's almost like video games. At a certain point, your brain gets to where it picks up on stuff like that, and it almost like changes out the cartridge or whatever and puts you in a different program. Or sometimes it just kind of like, like a video game. I mean, you see the same character in multiple roles.
Right.
and stuff like that. So it's crazy to think about, I don't, I subscribe heavily to like flat Earth and moon landing hoax and stuff like that. I'll defend pretty hard. Like I said, I'm not a super hard proponent for the simulation theory, and it's something I haven't researched as heavily as that stuff, but I definitely think it's plausible, man. I think it's possible, and I think it's very fascinating.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm sorry, I'm being rude again.
It's fine.
That just might become who I am on the podcast.
You're
The guy that's
who's
eating
and,
every podcast. But there is one interesting theory as to deja vu, and it has to do with seeing your life flash before your eyes.
Is that right?
Let me chomp this down real quick so I'm not rude. Hold on. Mama always said, don't talk with your mouth full. But there is one theory, and the way it goes is I think they referred to it as like the paying the ferryman theory, kind of like, the old belief that, you had to be buried with coins to pay for your trip across the river Styx.
Right.
And you had to pay your ferryman. Well, there is one thought that when you experience deja vu, like you're dead. Mm-hmm. And you're dead. But you're dead. I sounded so country. It's the cinnamon roll, man. You're dead. So what's happening is it's a moment where you're realizing you've lived this before. Mm-hmm. Because you've heard the light flashing before your eyes is a pretty real thing. I mean, some people... I mean, and we'll never know unless I guess it happens to us, in which case nobody, will still know for a fact. But a lot of people claim the light flashing before your eyes, and science has given it some validity as to like your brain emptying out memory, whatever. But but the supernatural thought is that, hey, what's happening is your life is flashing before your eyes, and it's a moment where you remember, like, hey, I've been here before, and then you're back, like you're watching a movie, and then you're back into the movie.
Yeah.
But more or less, because it's not just that your life flashes before your eyes. The weird thing about your life flashing before your eyes is that it happens, like they say, that it's not just moments. Like you relive your entire life in a second.
Yeah.
And the people say it feels like they're back in it. It's like a whole nother lifetime. Because I will say, to show how stupid I am, we used to play the knockout game. You ever played that?
I never played that.
Don't ever do this, kids. I almost feel bad to even talk about this because the podcasting dead does not encourage you to do this. I quit doing it because it's so stupid. The knockout game was a stupid game when I was a teenager where you basically take a deep breath and then you breathe it out. You do that a couple of times till you get kind of that oxygen high. And then you hold your breath and you lean back. Either you lean against the wall, which is the most dangerous way, or you do the safer way, which still isn't safe because you could kill somebody with it. But somebody comes up behind you and they basically squeeze you. They cut off
I don't like this.
Oh man, we used to do that all the time, and it would knock you out for like a second. Okay, and the reason I'm telling you this is because in the 3 seconds I would be knocked out, I would have full on dreams, dude. Like I could wake up and I have full on dreams that felt like they lasted for hours in a matter of like 3 seconds. So to me, that kind of goes along with the like your life flashing before your eyes in a second, because people say that they relive their whole life in a matter of seconds.
Yeah,
I don't know why I keep snapping when I say seconds, but yeah, like don't ever play that game. Seriously, I mean, I'm much older now. When I was a teenager when we played that, and one time we did it so many times in one night that I think I killed half my brain because it took me like 3 or 4 days to not be slow.
Yeah, man.
I bring that up for the sake of conversation, not encouraging. Please don't ever do that. It is because you could kill yourself, but you're cutting off oxygen to your brain. Not a good idea. Again, I was a stupid teenager. Everybody does stupid things when they're teenagers. That was stupid. But in doing that, I do remember in the few moments I'd be out having dreams.
Yeah, man. The only time I've had I don't know what you'd call it, suspended time or something, where a small little, like a couple minutes felt like an hour or 2 hours, was when I smoked salvia, man. That was very intense. And
that was a bad trip, right?
That was dude, I've, like I've said on here, I've done a few hallucinogens before, but the worst experience of my life was smoking salvia that I bought at like a gas station. And it was
at a gas station.
Yeah, dude, they used to sell it I was living up in DC and like in head shops and stuff.
I was gonna say, yeah.
But
Okay.
I mean, even in gas stations, man, like it was like how they sell CBD in gas stations now.
Right.
They would have stuff like Pep Spice and K2 and Salvia. They just sell.
Are they
in the
illegal
stores.
now?
Yeah, I don't. I'm assuming Salvia is as well, but I know K2 and all that stuff is in America because that's some other stuff, dude. Because I was living up in D.C. and my army buddy couldn't smoke weed, and I didn't really have a hookup up there like talking about. Well, I did, but he was a heroin addict, so going through him was a real pain in the balls.
Right.
So we were smoking these synthetics, man, and you talk about just edgy, awful highs, but you keep smoking it because, you know, you want to get high. But anyway, the Salvia was the worst, man. It was awful. It's kind of funny, man. Like, I was hanging out at the comic shop yesterday. Now, you know, they're our buddies, but they're kind of square over there.
Right.
And the owner, you know, I work for him a little bit. He brings up something about how the government's using LSD to help soldiers with PTSD or something like that. And I just bring up, you know, how I had done shrooms years before, and I didn't delve into all my experiences, but I just you can tell when you're talking to someone who's square, you know, they just have.
And what do you mean? Because some of them listen to this. So when they listen, what do you mean when you say square?
Just upright citizens. You know what I mean?
Right. You don't mean square as in like they're dumb.
No,
you mean square as in
they're very like law abiding and, you know, not
straight laced is pretty much is what you're saying.
That's
right?
that's a better term.
A better term. Straight laced. There you go. Because square, you know, it sometimes.
Well, that's what I use for a non-drug user.
Right.
You know, is square. You know, he's a good guy, he's a friend of mine, but you know, he's a square. You know, he's not gonna eat mushrooms with us on Saturday night. Not that I've done.
Am
that
I a square?
Time. I wouldn't say so. I mean, I know there's certain things you're a little less apt to try, and I think that has a lot to do with setting.
Right.
But no. I mean, generally speaking, you know, you'll take the pipe. You know. And take the pipe, that makes it sound like I'm having anal sex with you.
I was going to say, it sounds like we're smoking crack.
Yeah, smoking crack and then having gay sex. Which,
I mean, that's how we got to the bond of pleasures.
Yeah, I was going to say my birthday is coming up, so.
You know what that means.
Yeah.
Crack pipe and butt sex.
Crack pipe and anal, full on anal. But
this is what you have to look forward to in your 30s.
Yeah, it's true.
But no, there is no crack or butt sex between JP and I. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about with the Barn of Pleasures, you should check out our Fear the Walking Dead podcast. The show's been so boring that JP and I have somewhere along the line, JP, I think, started it, and I just kind of agged it on. But, you know, some homoerotic Fear the Walking Dead fan fiction.
At this point,
it's pretty enthralling, to listen to. But yeah, check that out if you want a good laugh. But no, back to the subject at hand. And do you think sometimes hallucinogenics can like feed into the simulation?
Well, man, I feel like, you know, our brain is still present, whatever we're plugged into, and I think it does kind of give us some insight outside, you know, whether this is like a Matrix-style computer simulation, whether
we're characters in a video game,
right?
Perhaps?
I mean, or even if the physical world does exist and there's dimensions out there beyond where we live, I do think it gives us insight beyond the here and the now, you know, whatever the here and the now is. I think it does kind of give us insight beyond that.
So my question is, if we are in a simulation, what happens to us when we die?
Man, I guess just the same thing that happens if it's not a simulation. We just die and they flush us out of the tube or whatever. I don't know.
So,
man.
But that must be a powerful simulation then. I mean, if we're sitting, like, say right now, a Matrix-style simulation, they were in like those little capsules or whatever, right? In the Matrix.
Yeah.
So let's say we're in a capsule, in a capsule right now, and I drown in this. We're just going to call it a simulation for the sake of this discussion. I drown.
Yeah.
How do I die in that capsule, though? I mean, so is this simulation strong enough that it actually tricks my brain into dying because it thinks it's...
I mean, I guess just even like in a stasis chamber where you're plugged into a simulation, I guess, you know, the human body still has an expiration date, you know, I would think.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, you're not just dying of old age. You're dying of circumstances happening in the simulation.
Okay, I see.
Like I'm saying, right.
Like if I shoot you.
Right, like, all right,
Yeah.
So yeah, like here, like what we're in now is a simulation. Somewhere out in the ether, we are plugged into a machine in a little capsule.
Yeah.
You're in one, I'm in one, probably not even near each other. But you shoot me, and I die. Why do I die in that capsule too? Or
That's a good question, man. I guess like the brain perceives this as being so real.
Right. Like we go into shock and it kills you?
Yeah, I guess maybe the brain would accept it as actually happening. And
or do you think it's possible that we just get put on a different server? For instance, let me give you an example, being that you don't play many video games.
Mm-hmm.
When I play Call of Duty,
yeah.
when you play Call of Duty, you die and you respawn, you die and you respawn. But if you leave, like say and this happens a lot because I suck at video games. I love them, play the crap out of them. But if you follow me on Twitch, and you'll see me streaming, especially when the new Call of Duty comes out, you'll see I'm terrible at it. But if I was to leave the room and then go back in, I'm in a whole new lobby with whole new people.
Right.
So like, normally if I'm playing a regular game, it's 12 people. And as long as neither one of us leave or we don't have an interruption, we stay together for hours and hours and hours playing. But if I was to leave and then wait a few seconds and come back in, I'm with a whole new lobby now. Do you think perhaps when we die, it's kind of like that? We just don't respawn here. We just go into another lobby. Mm-hmm. Maybe that would be what we would call reincarnation.
Yeah.
And I mean, in a way, I'm just trying to connect the dots here.
But no, man, and I've read up, a lot of people think that the origins of religion, the idea of a creator who made the universe and all this stuff is just us trying to, give in some notion that this is created by people, who've put together the simulation more, I guess, a programmer than an actual, deity or what have you.
So religion was kind of like part of the simulation.
Yeah. Yeah, there was just like we're going to give them some notion of what's going on without explaining, obviously, without pulling the veil and revealing the truth.
Right.
But it's fun to think about, man. I mean, fun and terrifying. You know how afraid I am of AI. Part of me thinks that AI has already evolved to the point to where, they're just key. They know the only way to really keep us from destroying the planet is to keep us in stasis tubes and just, let us play around in this,
Gosh,
simulation.
It's kind of like Westworld. I mean, not that the robots would have necessarily destroyed the planet, but, this oh, man, I don't want to spoil that. But that's been off.
Have you seen the new trailer for it?
No. Is there a new trailer for Westworld?
Well, I mean, it's not new, but there is a trailer out for season 3.
No, isn't Aaron Paul supposed to be in this?
Dude, yeah.
Oh, dude.
It looks like it takes place heavily outside of the park.
Maybe I have. You know what? Because when you said, well, it did happen a while back.
Yeah, it's not
maybe
like
I did.
Trailer,
maybe I did.
But there has been a glimpse at what season 3 is going to look like. So.
I'm stoked for Aaron Paul to be in it.
Oh, yeah.
He's so great, man. Him in the Westworld world is going to be fantastic. Mm-hmm. And I like the idea of Bernard playing Commissioner Gordon. I think that would be good casting. I could see him. I like him a lot. I'm sorry for not knowing the actor's name, but the guy that plays Bernard in Westworld, he also was on a very weird movie on Netflix where he was looking for this kid that supposedly was eaten by wolves. But he's a really good actor. I really very much enjoy him, and I could see him doing the Commissioner Gordon thing.
Yeah, man. I got high hopes for the Batman.
Yeah, man. That's going to be awesome if he does. But no, I have to check that out. But yeah, it makes you wonder. I've always thought about these things. I mean, a simulation would be an easy explanation for a lot of different stuff. I mean, for ghosts, just all kinds of things. You can have glitches, because I love going on YouTube and looking up, and I don't know if you do this. You listen to more podcasts, whereas I think I listen to more like lists and accounts of stuff.
Right.
But listen to like Glitch in the Matrix stories where someone, I'll give you a good example, and this is going to be a terrible recount here, but I'm just trying to remember what I've heard. So these people said they were coming down this road, and this could have been a ghost or a demon as well, but it also sounds like it could be a glitch in the Matrix.
Yeah.
They were coming down the road, and they've been coming, they live down this road, and they've been going down it for years and years and years, and the person telling the story was the child about his parents who told him or her the story, said that the parents told him they were coming home one day, and there's always this very sharp right turn, and the left would just take you off the mountain.
Yeah.
Off a cliff, but you take this sharp right turn. One day they're driving, and it's a left turn. Like going off the mountain is to the right.
Yeah.
The turn is switched sides.
Right.
And, of course, the guy driving tells his wife, what is this? I thought we turned. Have I been? So he just was very confused and almost took it. But I think the wife was like, no, don't take that. Seriously, go right. And he's like, but that's off a mountain. She's like, go right. And they turn right. And they swear to God that it just was the road.
Yeah, it would definitely explain stuff like that, the Mandela Effect.
Yeah, some
know?
people say that was an example of, and some people also say that was like a demon trickster or like a skin crawler trying to trick them into driving off a mountain. But still, to me, that sounds like a glitch in the Matrix type thing.
Dude, yeah, it could totally explain that.
You play video games. Modern day video games are a great example of how simulations would work. I mean, in the video games, your characters, I mean, I know that they're not necessarily sentient, but also science has shown that there's this really cool, look it up, where it's almost like our decisions are predetermined.
Yeah.
Our brain makes a decision for us. Before I really don't want to go too far into it, being that I'm not a scientist. I don't want to misquote science. So look that up. But there is these interesting findings in science where they say that it's almost as if our actions are predetermined, like we really aren't in control, which would put us just like characters in a video game. I mean, I'm sure to that character, granted it's not sentient, but everything around it's real. I mean, it's interacting with things. It's all code. Yeah. And, they use binary code, they say, is all around us. I mean, it can be used what is it, Neil deGrasse Tyson? I never get it right. Is it Neil Tyson deGrasse? Neil deGrasse Tyson.
I know it's Neil deGrasse Tyson. I never know how to say his middle name.
Okay.
Right,
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
DeGrasse or Degrassi or whatever. I don't know.
I mean, I think I've heard him, and if it's not him, I apologize. But I think I've heard him talk about like the code of the universe, like breaking down, like there might be a code for like programming code to the universe.
Yeah, dude. And I mean, that's just how expansive it would be. I mean, they didn't just like create this little town we live in or the state. I mean, they programmed an entire universe, the cosmos.
Right.
It's wild to think about.
There's an interesting thought too that the universe only exists to us. Like our mind projects the universe, like that we are not living in a universe. Like our brain is creating everything around us.
Yeah, man. That's like my boy Graham Hancock. He said that it's very interesting to think of the brain not generating consciousness, but receiving it. It's a receiver.
Right.
The consciousness is coming from where we don't know, but it's, being received by the brain. And when this physical form dies, the consciousness, I don't know, goes back to the source, goes somewhere else. Who knows? There
was a picture I saw that I thought was pretty powerful when you really think of it. It was a picture of a brain and just like a spinal column, like going down, not even actual, I shouldn't say spinal column, just the nerves that go from the brain down into the spine. And said, like, this is you.
Right.
Like, this is who you are. I mean, this is you. I mean, you're basically this with, and I mean, when you think about it, the brain is kind of like someone driving a car in a way. Like, you've got your eyes is like your windshield to see, and it steers with like the arms and the legs, but I mean, essentially that's what you are, is the brain and the nerves coming off of the brain. So, it's interesting to think that brain could be a receiver, that it's, the consciousness and everything around us is being beamed to us. And like you said, maybe the robots have gone Wi-Fi. Maybe we're in capsules and we're not being plugged up. We're just receiving this information to our brain,
Yeah, dude. Like I said, it's crazy to think about. And a lot of scientists get kind of butthurt because, science has kind of moved us away from the idea that we're just puppets of a greater being, a deity, a god, whatever. But when you start talking about simulation theory, it kind of brings back the thing that, we actually are just placed in something created for us, and.
But the question would be, if we were in a simulation, and I mean, this is kind of a broad question, but who created it? Why are we in it?
Oh, yeah, you can go deep. You can go super deep.
It's the only way JPSLIM knows how.
It's true.
But, I mean, like, really, like, what would be the reason for having us in a simulation? Obviously, what you stated earlier, perhaps robots or some form of life or maybe even extraterrestrials were just like, hey, these are some destructive beings. Let's, I don't know.
Maybe,
I mean,
it's one of those things. Maybe they see that, like, we do have great potential, but at the same time, we can't be left to our own devices, So instead of just letting us go extinct or exterminate us, just kind of put us in a playpen.
What if it's kind of like that story, the short story, The Egg, that I like so much?
Oh, yeah, dude.
That's an interesting thought. Like, what if in the short story, The Egg, it's been out for a while. I think we've even discussed it, but if you are not familiar with it, I'm going to explain it really quickly. And if you are like, you want to read it, but you don't want spoilers, then You know, you might want to skip like the next 5-10 minutes. Yeah, pretty much. But so in the egg, the twist at the end of the story, a guy dies, he goes to heaven, he's talking to God. And in this story, there's just one God, but there are others like God in a sense. But this God is the only God of our world. And it comes to find out that the guy who's talking to God is actually everyone who's ever lived, because God wants this guy to replace him one day. And in order to do that, he has to have lived every life that can be lived in order like to
past,
just
present, future,
to gain the wisdom. And in this story, time doesn't work the same way it does. It's not linear like it is for us. Like God tells him, I'm going to send you back as a peasant girl in 1580 AD or something to that effect, you know. And he's like, wait a minute, so I'm being reincarnated? And he's like, yeah, pretty much. And it's like, you know, so he's like, I was Hitler? He's like, yeah, and you were the 6 million Jews that you killed. You know, you're learning every angle of life, the good, the bad, the everything. So what if, like, there's only one of us right now in a simulation, and we're like you just said, the extraterrestrial, the being, whatever, God, whatever that put us in this simulation sees the potential, but knows that we need to learn and grow. So rather than let us learn and grow in an environment where we could be our own end, we're learning and growing in a simulation until it thinks we're ready to come out into the real world. I don't know. I know that got way out in left field really quick, but just when you had said, you know, it sees our potential, that's what made me think, you know.
One of the scariest things about that egg story, man, is there's been like millions of pedophiles through the course of human history. You've raped a lot of children.
But you've also been the children that you've done that to.
Yeah.
Like basically every bad thing you've done to yourself. And you're learning.
Yeah. Yes, I was glad you turned me on to that, man. That narration was super cool.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because I read the short story back probably around 2000. It was maybe like 2012, 13. I'm bad. I'm not as good. Well, I'm good with years, but I don't remember when I read it. But I've loved it ever since I read it. And then I found that narration that I sent you, which was very well done on YouTube. And just a joy to go back and re-experience it. But it is a cool thought, you know. And I had somebody was like, my friend Brad, I love Brad to death because he's not really, when I say he's not, I mean, I'm not an intellectual either, but what I mean is like Brad's not one that really ponders science and these things. I mean, he finds it interesting, but it doesn't take up much of his time.
Right.
I mean,
he's more of a business guy.
Right.
Yeah.
However, whenever he talks to me, we can get on this. You know, he and I can sit and have like 3-hour discussions on the nature of man. And it just, when we're around each other, we bring that out of each other. And he had messaged me because I sent it to him and was like, I've told you about this story. Here's a really cool narration. And he listened to it and he really liked it. But he was like, do you think that's the way it really is? And I was like, I mean, no, I'm not saying that should become our new faith. I just think it's a really cool story. But I'm also not saying it's not possible.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea for sure.
Like I said, maybe we were such a bad species that we're being rehabilitated right now. What do you think about that? Like perhaps we got destructive, so you know, or like you said, something saw the potential of us being destructive, so it put us in a simulation. Maybe the world's going to end due to pollution or due to our own actions, and it's going to show us that we need to change our way. You know, like, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
or I mean, the world could already be like unlivable for biological life forms, and just, you know, we put ourselves in this just because it was the only way to survive, just like feeding tubes, and, you know, our brain survives through the simulation so we don't go crazy.
What a cool story idea. What if we destroyed our planet? And we've now moved all of what's left of humanity to a new planet. But what we're doing is we put ourselves, or at least those in charge, put us in a simulation so that we could relive and see the harm that we did to the earth, so that when we awake and come out of this simulation, we know what not to do on this new planet.
Yeah, man, that's possible too. I mean, I've told you before, that was the whole reason I got my Biavian symbol, should the earth reach terminal saturation. I've got my ticket out of here, man.
And how are you going to get out of here? Your Biavian
I've mentioned him on the podcast before. Riley Martin was abducted by the Biavians. He had 3 different encounters aboard the mothership, and they downloaded into his neural syntax, because syntax is however you say it, 144,000 mystical Biavian symbols, and he would give these to people. And if you have one, you and your immediate loved ones were granted passage aboard the mothership, and then you would go to B of A. Should the world end? Should it reach terminal saturation?
So isn't that kind of like Heaven's Gate?
No.
Didn't Heaven's Gate believe that the asteroid was going to pass by and the extraterrestrials were going to pick people up and take them with them if they were.
Well, I mean,
part
that's
of his
like
group?
a dark, twisted version of this. But no, this Riley Martin was he's unfortunately he passed away several years ago. But he was a wise man. He was a sage. He wasn't a saint. He'd tell you real quick. He's not here to be your psychic friend or the Pope or nothing. But I was able to talk to him several times on the phone, and just a really spirited, honest guy, I mean, he was a regular on Howard Stern, and of course they would goof on him and everything, but he had his own radio show, and I miss him, man, but I still have my Biavian symbol, and so that's, I don't have a lot of faith, but I do have faith if the world ends, man. Me and my
You look like
crew are
you're
gonna go.
trying not to smile.
No,
as you say
man.
this.
Like, I mean, I've got his audiobook, man. It does sound fantastical, I will admit, but
Well, I mean, but isn't that the same way that like crooked preachers? I mean, wouldn't people say the same thing about them? Like, oh, they're so genuine and spiritual and honest.
I mean, there's a lot of shysters out there, man. I mean, there are,
And you don't think he was one of them?
No, I really don't. Like, I generally like to think I have a pretty good sense, like judgment of people, like character or whatever. And nah, I don't. I really don't.
But hey, remember, that's how swindlers work. They make you think that they're great people, and then they just get your money.
I know, man. I got ripped off for a bag of weed in New York City by a guy who said he had the best hydro around, and I lost $60 right then and there. But I was super duper drunk, and I was a lot younger. So
you live and you learn. Like as an adult, you've now learned that you just don't go. Number one, you don't go walking around the city asking for weed.
Well, no, he brought it up. Which, was
okay. Well, number two lesson that you learn is that when some stranger asks you if you want weed, you don't agree because it could be an undercover cop.
And you definitely don't give him the money first.
Right, yeah.
But, like I said, I was like 20 years old. And I was really drunk. I was super drunk.
Like I said, you live and you learn. Our mutual friend Jessie, I think, said she went to New York one time and was so just intoxicated. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think she just said she had been drinking or whatever, but I think it was her. Maybe it wasn't her. Maybe it was my friend John. I have someone that I know, and I thought it was Jesse for the longest time, but said they went to New York, but they really don't remember anything about it because it was just like one big, long party.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I feel you. I've been to places where it's like a concert or out of town. It's like, how was it? I really don't remember.
Oh, man, it was great. Like our buddy Matt Crowder, he was with me, my friend Josiah. We took the train from D.C. up there, spent the better part of a night, like got there in the afternoon and then took another train like at 3 a.m. that night or whatever. And I want to move up there, man.
I'll probably be up in NYC in December.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What are you going up there for?
Just to visit.
Just visiting?
Just to go see the Big Apple again.
You take
I
the
love
fam,
it, man.
or just friend trip? Or?
I don't know, man. I hadn't decided
So
yet.
it's just something that's kind of in the works.
Yeah,
you're figuring it out.
you can do. They got these really good deals where you put a $20 deposit, and then it's like $100 or something. But you take a bus basically from Lynchburg, Virginia, and it takes you somewhere, and then you get on like a train or something. You get on something, you get up to New York, and you spend the whole day in New York.
Yeah,
and you can either come back then, or you can just like get a hotel and come back on the next ride or something.
That's really cool.
So, might do that because I hadn't been in New York in a few years, and I love New York City.
Yeah, I've only been that one time. Sometime after the first of the year, man, I'm going to Colorado.
I'd like to go to Colorado.
That's like I've got some money saved, and it's gonna be one of those like just kind of like find myself kind of trips. Like I really may not even come back. I don't know. Well, I know we're just kind of conversating now, but
oh yeah. Anyway. Well, I mean that's the nature of the beast when you're podcasting.
Yeah.
Not even Joe Rogan stays on topic all the time.
No, he doesn't. He rarely even goes into a podcast with a topic unless it's a specific guest.
Yeah, But no, I mean, as far as the simulation and stuff, man, I find it fascinating. I just don't understand it. So, do you think the beings who have us in a simulation question if they're like, where does it end? Do they question if they're in a simulation? I mean, what's the nature of reality like for them? Maybe they just are a higher beings and they have a better understanding of how the universe works. I mean, that's been some reports of extraterrestrials. Maybe extraterrestrials are just the programmers programming themselves into the simulation.
Yeah, dude. I mean,
trying to give us little hints towards growth and learning. And
It was one of those rabbit holes there's really no end to, you know?
Well, think about it. Most extraterrestrials, a lot of reports from extraterrestrials are that they communicate telepathically. Mm-hmm. They don't have to talk. I just think if we were, I'm not saying I think we're in a simulation, but what I'm going to say is it would make a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. It would explain a lot, like ghosts and demons and God and reincarnation and, like you said, the Mandela Effect and just weird sightings and strange beasts and just, I mean, a lot of that would be, we're in a simulation.
Yeah.
That El Chupacabra is nothing more than an avatar they threw in to mess with us. But, I don't know. I don't know how much credence I give that. I love, man, that's a lot of people. It sucks because a lot of my friends don't really like to talk about this stuff, but I love to talk about like the nature of reality, the nature of being, like, why are we here? And I mean, I feel like that's something that, it's programmed into us to question and wonder. And,
yeah, man. And a lot of people are just so like dead set in the dogma that they were raised in, whether it's Christianity or whatever. Like, they don't want to question, they don't want to doubt their faith. They've got it figured out. You ponder all you want, but they're settled and they're happy with what they got. And I mean, more power to you,
Yeah, whatever makes you happy.
That's,
speaking of Colorado, a friend of mine, he's actually a mutual friend of myself and my best friend. He was my best friend's best friend for a long time, and I've met him multiple times through him. But he lives out in Colorado. Mm-hmm. Now, he's one of those guys, like he's very Christian.
Yeah.
But, man, like the coolest guy. Like definitely not what you picture. Like, I feel like you could have this conversation with him.
Sure.
And it's not like he'd be preaching to you the entire time or telling you, like, you're going to burn in hell for doubting. I mean, he would talk about it, like, well, why would. And so some Christians in that regard you can have those conversations, but I know what you're saying. Like, some people just don't like what they believe to be questioned, not even.
Yeah, dude.
And I'm like, dude, I feel like that would just make you stronger in your faith, right? Like, shouldn't you question just I don't know.
Yeah,
just blind faith alone, I feel like it's like a relationship. If you've been through trials and tribulations, I feel like you'll be a much better couple than if you just go through life and nothing ever goes wrong or you don't ever, address what's bothering you.
And I won't go hard on it, but at least the church I came up in, man, they were they really, really didn't want you to use like deductive reasoning and independent thought. They really were against that.
See, my church, my church was just like a Southern Baptist church, but
mine too.
But it wasn't. I mean, it was nothing like that. I remember our preacher growing up. I really liked him. He was a really nice guy. I don't remember. I never felt like I was going to make somebody mad by questioning, if that makes sense. Like my church, I will say that some of the kids were assholes, and I don't miss them one bit, but. I never felt like, and especially the preacher they've got now, which I mean, I haven't been to church in like a decade or more, but the preacher they've got now is a super cool guy. I've had dealings with him because of my grandparents dying. He went to church with them, and then my great grandma. So I've been around him a lot now. He definitely feels like the kind of guy that more of a progressive preacher in the sense of, I could ask him, like, how do we know that we're not in a simulation? It would just be a friendly conversation that he would give you his opinion, his Christian take on it. But even younger, man, I never felt like I would be, cast out or made to feel stupid or bad or wicked or anything for questioning. It would just be like, well, the Bible says blah, 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 blah. And it might be a part because of my grandma. My Nana was a very Christian lady, but she was a very reasonable. Mm-hmm. Like I had asked her about suicide. I was like, they say if you kill yourself, you go to hell, but do you think that's the truth? And I remember my Nana, my Nana's, she was older. You would definitely think she'd be the old, stuck in her ways, blind faith, Southern Baptist type person, but not at all. She was very progressive, very forward thinking. She said, well, honestly, she said, when, somebody takes their life, I feel like, except for those rare situations where they're just trying to escape paying for their crimes, those situations where people are depressed. I mean, there's something wrong. They've got something wrong in their brain that, be it a chemical imbalance or trauma, whatever. And she was like, I just can't see God punishing people for that. He doesn't punish mentally handicapped people. They can't help it. And I mean, not that any of that's true or that's worth going into, but just that's the kind of, Christian she was. A lot more forward thinking. Like, I just couldn't see him sending people to hell for having something wrong that he kind of put there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. It's interesting. I've never really looked into it, but Somebody told me that that's not actually in the Bible, that suicide equals hell. Like I've heard that that's more like a tradition that's just kind of been accepted as,
Right.
Christian dog,
You very well could be right. I mean,
like I said, I've never looked into it, but I have been told that. So I don't know. So if somebody, a listener, knows more about it than me, I'd love to.
Well, the
love to hear
Bible's
some thoughts on
very,
it.
it's kind of, I mean, I don't know if subjective is the right term, but I mean, it's kind of, people take it how they want, people can take it many different ways. I mean, one line can be taken 5 different ways to mean 5 different things. It's a very tricky document,
I'm telling you, I got about halfway through reading the book of Matthew, the first book of the New Testament, man, and I was just like, nah, this isn't for me.
Really?
I mean, when Jesus is making these metaphors, like, you got 2 kinds of people. You got, like, he's comparing people to grain. Like, you got the grain and you got the husk, and God's going to separate the grain from the husk, and the husk is going to be put in this fire that never goes out. And you're like, well, that sounds fucking awful. That's like Holocaust stuff. And then there's another metaphor, and he's just like, and this is, me reading it a long time ago, but straight up, like, some people are weeds, and God's going to pull the weeds out of his garden. And again, there was, talking about burning them forever. And I'm just like, nah, man, I'm good. This isn't for me. Like, people talk about the God of the Old Testament being a monster and the God of the New Testament being all hippy dippy love. But I read that and I'm like, I can't get behind this.
I think the thought is that he wants you to follow him so that he can,
so he doesn't burn you.
He will only love you if you follow him. But no, they say God loves you regardless whether you go to hell or not. But here's something interesting to think. Here's my problem. Why I don't automatically, I mean, I was raised Christian, much like yourself.
Right.
Why I don't dismiss Christianity, and I'm not like completely against it. But here's some things to think about, man. The Bible itself was shaped by man. I mean, it was written by man and shaped by man. We had people decide what chapters should be in it, what chapters should be excluded. And I'm pretty sure if you read in the book of Enoch, which was one of those, I don't know if it would be the Dead Sea Scrolls, but it was like later. It wasn't in the Bible.
It's one
it was
of the Gnostic Gospels.
Right.
Yeah,
they found
out.
it.
Yeah.
That says straight up like this, because a lot of the New Testament, well, at least I know like the book of Revelations is all kind of a vision, right? Mm-hmm. This was another book where a guy has a vision or a dream and he goes to heaven and this angel's give him a tour of heaven, and he's like, oh, over here is where you can buy all your sports apparel. And over here, they serve the best quiche in heaven. But, he's giving him a tour and there's a part where they look down. Mm-hmm. And he can see down into hell and see the people suffering and screaming. And just, it's a dark abyss. And he's like, I have a question, though. If God loves, because he's an angel's giving him a tour. And he's like, if God loves everyone so much, how can he do that to his children? I mean, I can understand not being pleased with them. But an eternity of damnation, that just doesn't sound like the action. I mean, a parent doesn't punish you for all of eternity. They punish you hoping you learn. And then in the angel, in layman's terms, I mean, he said it more prolific, but in layman's terms, he's like, let me let you in on a little secret. They don't stay down there forever. Mm-hmm. That's not eternity. Yeah. That is more of a rehabilitation. That is because nothing makes you be more aware of your crimes. Which I mean, if you're a child molesting, if you're a child molesting murderer or something, I do hope you spend a while in a burning pit of fire. But it's like basically like, look, hell isn't this place where God just casts you away and is done with you. That's a place He sends you to kind of learn the error of your ways, and then you have a chance to come here. So not all the narrations of Christianity are that.
But that was one of those books they kind of cut out.
Because it didn't fit the agenda. It didn't fit the... Think about it. I'm trying to get you to fall in line with... It doesn't... I'm trying to get you to fall in line with my religion. What sounds better? Well, if you don't follow my religion, you're going to burn in hell for all of eternity. Or if you don't... you don't follow my religion, you're going to go to this dark, scary, hot place for a little while. But I get to go to heaven. Well, but basically you could be saying you get to live however you want. You'll have to pay for it for a little while, but then you ultimately still can go to heaven.
Yeah, dude.
People wouldn't follow that and fall in line.
I had a very similar conversation years ago with a buddy of mine. He's actually like getting a PhD at Liberty now, and he said basically like just it's his firm belief that's what's in the what's canon, what's King James Bible stuff. The people who put that together were guided by God, divinely inspired, and that's why what was cut out was God directed these people to put in what they put in, and what Jesus says in the New Testament is word for word what He said, and That's again, we were both Southern Baptists, or I was Southern Baptist, and it's a very literal interpretation of the Bible. They, like Methodists, I know they're a lot more liberal in their interpretation, Catholics and all that stuff, but Bible, Baptists, man,
fire and brimstone.
Yeah,
brother.
dude. Have you ever been to a judgment house like around Halloween? Where
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, at Halloween, dude, a lot of churches basically they put together like a car crash or something, and you see 2 people die, and one person goes to hell, and they walk you through what it's like to go to hell.
Because they know they've been there.
Right. And then, you see at the end, you see where the person who was in the car crash was saved, and it's all like, fluffy and clouds. And
I've seen something similar. Y'all have something, don't you have scare mare up here? And what it's called?
I think so. I know there's a few up here.
What does mare stand for? Does that just rhyme with scare?
I don't know.
Scare mare. You know what I mean? I always wondered, like, what does the mayor part of that mean? Does it just rhyme? They just make up a word because it rhymed. But anyways, that's the same. I'll never forget going, and I should have known. We went with a church, right?
Right.
I should have known, but we go with the church, and nobody told us what the end of this thing was going to be. So we go through scare mare, and it's a lot of that. I mean, you have a few people chasing you and jumping you, but it's more scenes of death. It almost was like faces of death more than it was a haunted house. I thought it was going to be like, and booze, and you jumps, and I mean, it was only a little bit of that in the beginning. Then you walk into this room, and like you said, there's a car crash. There's a car turned over with like this woman who looks cut in half, and then there's this like it was all more scenes. So then you get to the very end, and they're like, "Have you accepted Christ in your heart?"
Yeah, dude.
And I mean, even when I was a fairly religious person, I remember rolling my eyes like, "Oh, come on, man! It's Halloween. I wanted to get away and just get the bejesus scared out of me a little bit." And now, I mean, I remember they're like, "Have you accepted?" I'm like, "Yep, I'm good. Came here with the church." And
it's all scare tactics, man. I mean, that's their biggest tool. I mean, in a lot of cases,
that's
churches
right.
are like
that's some churches' rules. Because I mean, I've told you, man. Like, and I mean, I know this started off as simulation. Now we're talking about religion, but that's just where the conversation goes. But I've also seen other churches that have impressed me and that I would consider going to based on actions of love. So you're right. A lot of churches do use scare tactics, but there are churches out there, and I have so much respect for them, man, that use like a love. Like, for instance, there's Lake Fest. It's this event that people come from California to go to this thing. Why? I don't know, but they do. And it's on the, I think what was Bugs Island Lake? It's the biggest man-made lake in America, or on the East Coast. It's one of the biggest man-made lakes somewhere.
It's definitely a big one.
So there's this big celebration every year in this little town that basically thrives off of the popularity of this lake, and they celebrate. And so they have it on the street. Well, the street gets really hot. I mean, here in the last 5 summers, it's been so miserable. I've just not enjoyed myself. In fact, I didn't even go this year. It's been so hot. Yeah. But the heat's coming off that blacktop. Well, there was a church there on Main Street. The church had its doors open, and there was no stipulation, no nothing. Come on in, enjoy the AC, feel free to use the restroom, and bottled water is to your left. And nobody was preaching to you. Nobody, nothing. Like, it was, they just basically, when you came through, they were like, "Hey, welcome to so-and-so. Would you like something to drink?" And I mean, when you left, they would, be like, "Would you like to take a pamphlet?"
Yeah.
But it was nothing shoving in your face. There was no, and I was like, see, that's what I'm talking about. Like, if I knew nothing about religion and I had never been to church, nothing, and I saw that would inspire me to come back and want to know more about them. It's an act of love more than it is like, you must join us. It's just like, hey.
Yeah, there's a lot of Christians out there doing a lot of good. Like, a buddy of mine's dad, he's with a Christian group that goes to like disaster-stricken nations like Puerto Rico, whatever hurricane hit whatever place. And they're there first and foremost to give aid. Now, if someone comes up and they want to know more about Christ, then they're definitely going to fill you in. But they're
letting the actions speak louder than the words.
Yeah, they're there for disaster relief, and that's that's it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like there's a church right down the road from my house that I love the way because I've had, you've got like a Jehovah's Witnesses knock on your door and want to stand there, or Mormons, and they want to talk forever and ever and ever.
Yeah.
This church, man, I love it every Christmas, and I think I might have even mentioned them on the podcast, but every holiday, basically, they come to the door, they knock on the door, they're very brief, they're like, "Hi, my name is Justin from blah, blah, blah church down the street. Just wanted to come by. We've got either they'll have cookies or freshly baked bread or whatever. And we're like, We just wanted to give you this as a way to say Merry Christmas and to let you know if you're ever thinking about a church, please come down and see us. And we hope you all have a happy holiday. And then they leave. And I'm like, see, now that right there. And then on the bread, of course, there's a little booklet about their church. Yeah. It's not one of those like, have you been saved? What do you think? Because you see those little things in the bathroom stalls where it's straight up just is like terrifying.
Oh, dude, it's so gross. You got to pick it up off the top of the urinal, and I'm just like, oh.
So when we say, for those, because I'm sure we do have, plenty of Christian listeners. So when we do like talk about the bad side of certain religions, don't feel like we don't acknowledge that there aren't plenty of good sides as well. Yeah. But with that said, to say that some Christians don't use scare tactics in order, and that's any religion, Christian, Muslim, Jew, I'm sure all religions with a heaven and a hell at some point. I
don't think the Buddhists do. I don't.
Well, no, the Buddhist. I mean, that's Zen. I've told my girlfriend if I was going to get super into one religion, that would probably be the one I'd love to look into, because it's all about peace and inner peace and learning to just grow as a soul, more or less.
Yeah, those Eastern religions, man, they're pretty groovy.
Yeah, but no, I mean, any religion with a heaven and a hell, I think, at some point has used a scare tactic. So I mean, it's not just Christian. But yeah, I don't know, man. And so anyways, going all the way back to the simulation thing. So in some of these simulation theories, those religions were just programmed in.
Right. Just like little clues to, or I don't know, maybe that's still like kind of implanted in our mind, that this was all made for us, and that just turned into, God and, Abraham this, Moses that, whatever.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's kind of like when you go to when you play Pokemon, you find like the little signs with the backstories.
Right. So.
But I don't know. What do you think about simulation? What do you think about anything? Why are we here? How are we here? How did we get here? Like I said, I don't believe in the simulations theory. I don't dismiss it either, but it would explain a lot easier than a lot of other things would. I mean, like you said, it's kind of like with certain religions, it's like, ghosts aren't real. There's no way they can be real.
Right.
And then, some religions even say there's no way there's extraterrestrials and yada, yada, yada. But yet you still have all this phenomenon happening. With the simulation theory, it all makes sense. Yeah. Glitches in the Matrix. You know what I mean? If you get a chance, seriously, go on YouTube again. I promote him a lot because I just think his channel is freaking awesome. Lazy Masquerade is one of them. And look up like the glitches in the Matrix stories. I mean, it's times where people go to towns that they're and sometimes it makes me wonder if it's not interdimensional stuff either, like a parallel universe. But they go to they're on a ride home, and let's just say like in the middle of like as far as they remember, it's just a straight shot till they get to their house. Yeah. They'll end up going through a town that they've never noticed before, and it affects them so much that they'll like go home, get family, and go back, and there's no town there. Some could equate that probably to lack of sleep, drug usage. Yeah. But, I mean, still, error in programming makes a lot of sense. Oh, wait, that town's not supposed to be there. Let's get that over back into New Mexico. What is that doing in Virginia? That doesn't happen until the third act of this video game. Yeah. But let us know what you think, man. It's a really interesting thought. And again, remember, with these, we're not trying to convince you of anything. We're just
we'll
just
save
discussing.
That for a flat Earth, and I'm going to convince everyone.
You're not going to. You've been trying to convince me for how long now? And it's just not going to happen.
You're teetering.
I'm not.
You're teetering.
Not one bit.
Yeah.
Not one bit.
The Earth going to take us a nice stiff blow to get you over on the side I want you on. Yeah. That's it.
A nice stiff blow.
So be looking forward to that, listeners. I'm still getting my flat Earth information together
because there's not much out there. So he's having a lot of trouble. He's having a lot of trouble pulling it all together to create that podcast because there's so little information out there that actually scientifically supports it that he's having to pull from whatever. But hopefully in the next 2-3 years, we will have you a Flat Earth podcast by the time JP's got it all together.
There's some math that basically proves that the Earth is not.
But there's also math and physics that proves it's not.
And I don't think
you just choose not to believe. See, that's the problem. Neither will ever agree. I mean, the only way that we're going to know definitively is to put you in a spaceship and shoot you straight up.
No, I want to take a expedition to the ice wall, man. I want to go to the outer rims of the Earth, man. I want to see the ice wall. I want to climb it.
The ice wall, where is that? Is that in Antarctica?
Think of the Earth as like a petri dish, and we're surrounded by an ice wall. Admiral Byrd actually found a lot of this on his Antarctic expeditions. Of course, he died under mysterious circumstances. But you look into Operation Fishbowl, Operation High Jump Man. It's a petri dish with a big dome around it. And
so is it a actual planet?
Well, I mean, it's think of like an endless plain, and there may be other, domed petri dishes like ours.
Did someone dome them? I mean, are they just these natural occurrences in the universe?
I mean, it's in the Bible. I don't know. I don't really attest to God and stuff like this. But
all right, tell me. You've said that a million times, but you've never told me where in the Bible does it say that the Earth is flat?
I'd have to pull it up. It's
see, you never have it. Though.
No, there's several instances. It talks about a stationary. It talks about the firmament, stationary. There's examples where the talking about the sun. I could
see, to me that takes more blind faith almost than, I mean, like you don't even really know. You just know that someone says it's there, and that's your evidence.
I have read the verse.
I feel like if you truly believed in a flat Earth and you had accepted it and you truly believe it, you would know a lot of this stuff.
No, they're just
most flat earthers don't have any information for you.
No, they're just not fresh on top of my mind. Like I said, dude, look at lighthouses and how far out they say that ships can see them. And if you go by the math of the curvature of the Earth, it would be impossible because the lighthouse would be way down here below the curve and the ship would be up here.
Well, isn't the distance you can see relative to your size?
Yeah, but I mean, that still doesn't. I mean, the lighthouse, it'd be impossible to see it beyond the curve of the Earth if that was the case.
Depending on your size, though. I mean, like, what if you were sitting up in a crow's nest of a ship? I mean, you're way up high. Wouldn't you be able to see a little bit further?
I don't think you'd be high enough to.
Crow's nests are pretty high up there, man. And them old ships, I mean, they were way, way up there. And that generally was why you put someone up there, was to see, because you couldn't. From the bottom of the ship, you wouldn't be able to see as far out as you need to see things like land and lighthouses. So they had a crow's nest up top so someone could go up top and get a better sight. I mean, if that's the case, that the crow's nest kind of just shows the curvature of the Earth. Because if it was flat, they would all be able to see it from the deck of the ship. But they had to get at a very high vantage point. Again, the distance you can see.
That's why they can't see it, because there's no curvature. If there was a curvature, I mean,
from the ship. Again, how far you can see depends on your size. Your size is relative to how far you can see around you and stuff. So, being that they put themselves at an elevated place, it's kind of like they increase their size. They're taller. They're up higher than they were down here. So if the Earth was flat, if the Earth was flat, if the Earth is flat and there was no curvature, someone standing on the deck of that ship and someone up in the crow's nest, shouldn't they be able to see the same distance, being it's all flat? Shouldn't being up high give him no advantage whatsoever because the Earth is flat and they can see the same distance? If the Earth was curved, they would need that crow's nest in order to kind of see over the hump. That's why they get up higher.
It's still, there's no way it would be high enough. I can show you illustrations. Again, I don't have them right on my person, but when you look at it, man.
And keep in mind, this is with me doing no research. This is just me off the top of my head. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to research very hard. I mean, and you're going to enlighten me. So I don't need, I'm going to research very hardcore. We're going to have like a fun little spirited debate. I'm going to research really hard into the round Earth theory, the spherical Earth theory. You do a lot of research into the flat Earth theory, and then we will meet in the middle.
Yeah, but no, man, I'm telling you, there's a lot of science. But
there's a lot of science that the Earth is round. Just as much as there is for the Earth is flat, there's just as much or more for the Earth being spherical.
Yeah, but
it just comes down to which one you want to believe, I guess.
You can pick it apart pretty easily, though. Like, there's certain bridges.
Didn't they just do a documentary on Netflix to prove the Earth was flat? And at the end of it, even the flat earthers were like, oh, damn, and realized that all the things that they thought they were right about to prove the Earth was flat were completely wrong.
No, I haven't watched that, dude.
Why don't you, though? I mean, you're open-minded, though. I mean, you got to know what the competition's talking about. I mean, that's like playing football, saying you refuse to watch a Dolphins game because that's your competition. Like, no, you'd watch it so you'd know what to fire back at them, how to get around their defenses.
They clearly have an agenda.
But why? Will you watch it with me?
Possibly.
Because you talk about like it's kind of being counterproductive. It's kind of like what you were just talking about with Christians. You were saying that like they refuse to to look into anything that could question their beliefs. Well, here you are with a documentary that questions your beliefs, and you refuse to even give it light of day.
Because this is
That's terrible. I can't talk today. I'm sorry. Light of day. I don't know. You refuse to watch it. I don't know why I'm trying to be so profound with my words today. It's the same disinformation I've been
fed through school my whole life. Like I said,
but this was created supposedly by flat earthers. This wasn't created by people who were trying to prove the Earth was round. Dude, this was people trying to prove the Earth.
Doubt that.
And you might be right, but but if you refuse to watch it because it goes against what you believe, then that's no different than the diehard Christians you were talking about who refuse to have discussions on things that could question what they believe.
I just don't feel like giving up 2 hours for a clear puff piece to, just sow disinformation.
Well, then that would be even better for you, though, because then if you know all of this information about how the Earth is flat, you should be able to watch that and pick it apart. And then you should be able, whenever somebody like myself throws that at you, because a lot of round earthers are using that documentary and throwing it at flat earthers, and most flat earthers aren't saying anything back except for what you're saying. Oh, I'm not watching that. It's clearly biased. Watch it, and then you can pick it apart and go, oh, dude, okay, so the part where they did so-and-so, that's bullshit because of blah, 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 blah.
All I'm saying, watch Eddie Bravo's last appearance on Joe Rogan, man. He brings up some stuff that just shuts Joe down.
It may be.
And maybe, like I said, I mean, I'm not a scientist, which makes it hard to explain a lot of this stuff.
But I feel like if you're going to be that strong of a proponent for something, you need to see both sides. You need.
I've seen both sides. I've been taught this. It's what
okay, but this is a big deal in the world of flat Earth. I mean, I feel like you would have no problem watching it.
So that. I just don't see the.
You don't see the need, but that's like a Christian. A Christian doesn't see the need to discuss if we're in a simulation because in their mind, God created the heavens and the earth, and that's just it. That's all they need to know. Evolution. They refuse to acknowledge or even learn about evolution because in their mind, what's the point? I mean, it's just other people, naysayers, trying to throw them off the path. Whatever.
It's just nothing that hadn't been shown to us before, taught to us before in school.
Well, don't you think like an old pastor would say that? I don't need to. I mean, I know all about evolution. Same thing has been shown to me my whole life. I mean, I don't need to see any evidence because I know God created the earth, and I've been told that my whole life in school, whatever. I mean, you got to see both sides.
I've seen both sides. The other side is what's brainwashed me through however many years.
All right, we're going to watch this documentary together.
Well, will you watch some
sure,
material?
Eddie Bravo, absolutely. Dude, years and years ago, I watched some of the flat Earth stuff, but I just found it so ridiculous. I quit watching it because it just wasn't anything that convinced me.
We've been programmed to believe it's just pish posh.
Or maybe I just believe people who have actually been into space and spent their life studying this stuff, and not just some pothead at his mom's basement who just decided, hey, the Earth is flat.
There's a lot of people in the scientific community who won't come out of it.
Maybe, but my argument just goes back to what are the accolades? Like what, I mean, I understand you can't always believe people just because they have a degree. I get that. But there are so many people who have shown time and time again they know what they're talking about when it comes to things like physics and space and yada, yada, yada. And they all collectively come together and say, look, the Earth's not flat. That's kind of stupid.
Well, whereas they'd lose their career.
I feel like it'd be different if scientists were coming, out the woodwork to say the Earth. I mean, you don't. My problem isn't that just scientists say the Earth is round. I mean, I understand not believing everything scientists throw at you. I get that, but there's no like with the global warming. A lot of researchers say that the Earth, that man-made global warming is real, but there are scientists out there that come out and say that that's not true. Like you have experts in their fields going at it. You don't have any experts.
No, there's experts.
Well, I mean, I've spent a lot of time watching YouTube videos, and I can tell you,
there's experts out there in the
where
field.
did they study? Give me one of your heroes who you believe this so passionately through. Give me where did he study? What does he know about physics? I don't have a list
of names, but like I said, there are people in these fields. Like I said, I mean, they'd lose their career.
But I mean, there's also still people who come out and show their face and say Area 51 has aliens, knowing that according to what everybody thinks, you'd get shot for saying, but they do it. Yeah. So I feel like there's some scientist, like a big expert in this thing, would come out at some point and be like, look, the Earth's flat. They've been lying to you. See, the part of flat Earth I can believe is some people think flat Earth theory was created by the government to see how fast they could spread misinformation to the general populace in case they ever needed to steer us a certain direction. Now, that I can get behind. I totally believe the government does stuff like that, and I could completely believe that they would want to see, because all you got to do is go online, and it's been declassified how many experiments they've done on the general public without our knowledge. I mean, they do it all the time. They still do it. So that could be one of them. Now, that I can get behind, but the Earth actually being flat, just not one.
I'll get some accredited experts together.
Please, because I'm not saying they're not out there. I'm just saying you've never thrown one at me. So if somebody out there is a big flat earther and you're going, so-and-so studied at the school, yeah, okay, cool. I've just never had a flat earther actually give me anyone of note who's backed flat earth. It's always been these no-name people who just seem about as, as sane as this guy that JP bought the Biavian symbol from.
Now, don't go disparaging Riley Martin.
I mean, rest in peace. I mean, I don't like to speak ill of the dead, but I mean, to me, that just sounds like a way to make some money.
Well, he died pretty broke, so
As a lot of celebrities die broke.
Well, he wasn't.
You get a lot of money, and they take people.
But no,
take
man,
your money.
he was a really good spirit, and again, he claimed to have left the Earth. He wasn't a flat earther at all, which, in my mind, the Biavians have telepathic abilities, and maybe they didn't want to give him more than he could handle, as far as that's concerned.
Maybe they were just feeding him what he, a little bit at a time.
Gave him the image, exactly. Or maybe that's something he wasn't ready to reveal. We may never know.
Very interesting, but leave us your thoughts. Let us know what you think. Like the flat earth thing, man, I would love for someone to change my mind. I've not heard anything that has changed my mind yet. And it might have to do with the fact that almost everybody that's ever talked to me about flat earth does the same thing. They can't. Anytime you present a counter argument, it's just, they're lying to you. They're lying. Like that's just the end all be all. You say,
well, they've lied to us about so much.
They did this test on so and so, and it proved that that's all fake. That's fake. Like, I mean, you can't argue with somebody like that, because any actual credible evidence you give to go against what they think, it's fake. It's fake. It's just fake.
Again, like I said, I brought up the lighthouse thing. I mean,
and I brought up a counter argument that you really couldn't say. I mean, according to Flat Earth,
you're not an expert on geodynamics,
and neither are you, or the people that you're listening to. The people that are telling you
are.
So they've studied that more than just read up on YouTube. These people have went to school for it. They have studied.
There are certain people who, and I'm no expert in it, but I think it's very compelling information. Just like certain bridges, that if you account it for the curvature of the Earth, it would be in the design, and there's no bend in the bridge. It's just
certain bridges. Well, I mean, I've been across plenty of bridges, like going to Virginia. Is it Virginia Beach? Well, maybe it's
the one where you actually go under the ocean.
No. There's one where I've been on bridges where you actually, as you're going up, you can see that you go up, and you're going over water. So it's not like they're going up over anything. You can actually see the bridge goes up, and then you can't see. If the Earth was flat, I'd be able to look from one end of the bridge across to the other. But the bridge itself actually looks to be curved. I can see the top of the heel, it looks like, and then I can't see beyond it.
A lot of those go up for ship clearances. But no, there's flat bridges. I can't remember the name of it, but there's no account for the curvature of the Earth. It's just a flat bridge.
And this has been determined by bridge builders, people that know about bridges.
Yeah, I mean, you can, the design, the schematics are out there. Like I said, I'll put together a portfolio.
But I mean, the people that are breaking apart the schematics, though, they know how to build bridges. Like, they know how to read actuals. Because, I mean, I can look at a schematic and deduce things all day long, but if I don't know what the schematic is, if I've never used the schematic, I really don't know anything about it.
Yeah, these are engineers. I'm telling you, it was an engineer in Eddie Bravo's jiu-jitsu class who started to explain it to him and really kind of got him pondering it. I don't know.
Yeah, because like you say, I'm not an expert on ships, but neither are you. So that's why I'm throwing something back at you. That was your argument, was the whole thing. So my counter argument, just in basic, I mean, I'm not an expert, but this is just basic thought, is that, well, I mean, if that's the case, then why did we have crow's nests? Because if being up high didn't give you any advantage to seeing any further, then you should be able, someone up here in the crow's nest and someone on the deck should be able to see the same distance. They wouldn't need a crow's nest.
I think even if it's flat, I mean, a taller person can see a little further.
But that goes to what I'm saying, like Neil deGrasse Tyson or whatever said, how far out you can see is determined by your size relative to your surroundings.
Yeah, but even still, when you see the disparage of where the lighthouse
I don't. Well, no. If
compared to the
everything
ship, if with the curvature,
if
of the
everything was flat, though, I don't see how being high would give you an advantage. If everything was flat, how would being high give you any advantage? I mean, you'd be able to see down, but as far as distance, like me and you and I, we're looking off of a ship that way. We're just looking to the right. If that's it, and you're not looking down for something, you're just looking straight across. I don't see if everything was perfectly flat, how you being up high would give you any advantage to me on the ship.
Would. It's like a trigonometry. I think you'd still have a further field of vision.
But how, though? I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Well,
we're still just looking out, like we're both just looking straight across. So how would you being high if everything is flat and there's no round, no curvature, no nothing? Why couldn't we see the same things?
I feel like the what is it?
I mean, if there's no, I don't know, obviously, somebody throw a stupid example like, oh, there was a mountain in front of you. Well, no, schnit, you got to see over the mountain, which is what we're saying. If everything was flat, though, like if you're out on the ocean, there's no mountains or anything in the ocean. It's just, if the earth is perfectly flat and they're just sailing across flat waters, I don't see how, if the earth was flat, sitting up in a crow's nest would give you any advantage past the person on the deck.
I think what's that equation we learned? I think you do. I think you have a wider field of vision.
I mean, maybe wider, but but the whole point is we go up to see over the hurdles and the humps and stuff. I mean, if it was just perfectly flat, we'd still be able to see things.
Yeah, but even still, I think getting higher.
I don't think so. I think that we have to go up high because the earth is curved, and you can see further out past the curve the higher you go. No. So that's why we have crow's nests.
Yeah, I think being higher, even if you're just on a flat plane.
I don't think so. It might give you. Of course, you can see further up. I mean, you got a wider field of view, yeah, because now you can see higher up than that other person was. But it's looking across a flat surface. I don't see how me being all flat on the ground like this and you being up high. I don't really see how that could help you to see further. That's not my point. Talking about a wider.
No, I understand.
See further.
I'm pretty sure you can see further from higher up.
But that's because the earth is curved.
I don't think that's why, though.
That makes no sense. That makes no sense, though. What that makes no sense. So the earth isn't curved; it's flat. But somehow, if you go higher, you can. That just proves Neil deGrasse Tyson right, though. However you say his name, that how far you can see is relative to your size around your surrounding, against your surroundings.
I don't think that's has to do with the curvature of the earth, though.
That's what he's.
I really don't. I
think at this point you're just reaching.
No, I'm not.
Because that's a simple argument. Forget a lighthouse is in front of us. It's in front of us. The earth is flat. The lighthouse is 100 feet in the air.
Yeah.
100 feet in the air. It's flat. I don't see how if the world is perfectly flat, how me sitting here and you sitting higher would give you any more advantage to seeing that than me.
I do think if
the earth was curved, then guess what? Being flat on the deck, the curvature of the earth could prevent you from seeing that, which is why you go higher to see over the curve and you can see the light.
I don't think that's how it works.
I think it is.
It's just like, you can see further out in town if you climb to the top of a water tower. I don't think it's because, the curvature of the earth. I think just the higher you get,
the curve is what keeps us from seeing things.
I don't.
It's kind of like this. So you go up higher and you can see over that hump. Whereas when you're on the ground, look up Neil. And I'm not the expert on it, so don't take my word final. Look up Neil deGrasse Tyson's freestyle against B.O.B. explaining. Not you. I'm talking to the listener. Explaining to him about size being relative to how far out you can see, and people say, "Oh, the Earth is flat. That's why you can see out." Yada yada yada. Look up Neil deGrasse Tyson's whatnot. Like I said, man, and there probably are, if there are scientists out there that say this earth is flat, all I ask for you is just to bring me those arguments. I just want to hear those arguments. Our old pal Josh Berry is really big into conspiracies, a longtime listener. Maybe he knows, actual names and stuff. So I'm not saying that it's 100%. I don't believe it, but because no one's ever shown me anything that's convinced me. But maybe,
Yeah, Josh Berry definitely knows.
Yeah, like Josh, you're a smart guy. You know conspiracy stuff. Like, give us some names of some people who studied, I guess, I don't know, geology or air and space who actually have, trained and learned this stuff, which, of course, then the argument would probably be, well, of course, if they've went to college, they've been brainwashed and just shown what. So,
I mean, say what you will about college. I do think it's very dogmatic.
Some of it is. Absolutely. I mean, my little brother's going for radio right now, yet every day all he's told is how horrible of a person Trump is. He goes to his class that's supposed to teach him. My brother's like me. He's like, I really don't care about politics. You know what I mean? Like, love Trump, hate Trump. I don't really give a damn. But, like, he's in class to learn how to edit audio, or he's in class to learn, like, the science of radio and the history of radio. And rather than actually talk about anything related to the subject, he said it's an hour lecture about how Trump is the worst thing to happen to America in multiple classes. So you're right. Definitely some colleges can be very...
This is what I'm saying. If they'll misinform you about that, what's to stop them from misinforming you?
Well, they don't think they're misinforming. Mine isn't necessarily that they're misinforming you. It's that they're not talking about what they're supposed to be. Right. They're pushing an agenda on you. But, I mean, there are some colleges where if you go to study air and space, you just study air and space. I mean, if that's the case and you can't believe anything, then, I mean, what's the point?
Well, I said you just approach it with an open mind. And
I approach the dinosaur thing with an open mind.
Yeah.
I think I was pretty open-minded. I do believe there were dinosaurs, but there was some pretty interesting evidence there, and it makes a lot of sense as to why dinosaurs would have been faked. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things. I've been very open-minded. So to the listeners that are like, Justin's an ass, blah, blah. I've approached a lot of things with an open mind. I'm sure there's
more on your side than on mine.
No, I think there are a lot more on your side than mine.
Not when it comes to flat Earth.
People rarely take my side on this podcast. There's been most of the time it's JP. JP's the god of man. JP can do no wrong. So they're probably on your side.
Not when it comes to flat Earth, though. I know there were certain listeners the last time it was brought up that were just like, flat Earth, you're not going to listen to this anymore, I mean,
if you're that closed-minded that you can't just listen to someone talk about that, then that's sad. I mean, JP and I are good friends, and we totally, obviously, as you can tell, believe different things. Yes. But we still hang out and enjoy each other's company.
Well, I don't believe in anything.
If you can't even listen to a discussion, then I'm going to tell you the world's going to be a very scary place. Just listen to a discussion.
Anyway.
But yeah, so let us know your thoughts. If you know some science that completely proves the flat Earth, drop it in the comments below. I would love to read it. I mean, trust me. I think JP believes me when I say that if you drop me some evidence that truly convinced me, I'd come out and say I have changed my mind.
I think you will.
I mean, no, I don't think I will, but I would if you did change my mind. I just don't know that anyone will. But again, if you've got something that might do it, drop it in the below. This is a discussion. That's all this is. This is a discussion. There's no need to get mad and to get heated. That's what I love about JP so much, is that we can have these discussions and neither of us is mad at each other. Like, we just...
No, you'll come over.
I don't think I will.
I'm sure Josh will. Josh Berry, if he still listens, will fill in some blanks on some stuff.
The reason I thought of Josh Berry is because I just got a notification that he commented on one of our videos, like while we were doing this podcast.
Nice. Well, hopefully he hung in long enough. And Josh, please fill in some blanks where I was kind of scratching my head, because like I said, I really haven't listened to a lot of material on this in probably the last year. So I was back when I was working at the grocery store, man. I was just listening to stuff all the time as I was working.
Yeah,
and I remember a lot of key points. But that being said, it's a lot of it's not fresh in my mind. I'll retain knowledge because of the drugs. So.
Yeah, I can do it.
But anyway.
But yeah, so let us know what you think.
Man. I've enjoyed this.
I've enjoyed the conversation. Though it started simulation, went to religion for a while. Kind of went to the cinema for a bit, and then to flat Earth. But it was a very
Speaking
very
of going
good...
to the movies, can't wait for the Joker this week.
Oh, yes, we're going to go see that. Did we say Friday?
Yeah, we're going to try to squeeze it in at some point.
Thursday or Friday, we're going to go see it. Yeah, I think we said we're going to do a review about that.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be podcasting about that. So stay tuned. Might get a rare Friday podcast. Doesn't happen often.
Oh, man. Yeah, especially with me leaving for the beach Sunday, too. You're only going to get one podcast next week, and that's the Walking Dead one.
Yeah, and I'll be putting some stuff on the Patreon page. I can't really, the YouTube can be tricky, but I'll make some silly videos and put them on.
Yeah, JP will keep you in there. Speaking of which, go check out our Patreon, patreon.com/thepodcastingdead, just like the deep voice guy at the beginning said.
Yeah, we've lost a couple, but
that happens. We're just appreciative for the time that we got to spend with them.
And I do need to get some more content on there, and we are getting some merch together. We're talking to a graphic designer. We're waiting to get some images back. We'll have some merch coming soon. Patreon's taken care of first and foremost, but all the listeners are going to get some love. We're going to be sending stuff out to everybody that we can. I mean, obviously not like 2,000 people that listen to one podcast.
Oh, yeah. Check out the Patreon. A lot more coming with fall. A lot more Walking Dead discussions to be had. Some stuff that can go on Patreon. Also, I'll be playing more video games. And if you want to follow us on social media while I'm on vacation at Myrtle Beach, I will be doing some Periscoping and Snapchatting. So if you want to get on there and chat, because, I mean, trust me, you'll probably my Periscopes will be having a whiskey and on ice on a golf cart, just talking to listeners. So if you want to have a discussion with me while I'm on vacation and possibly a little inebriated, feel free to follow me on Periscope, Instagram, Snapchat, or Twitter. I'm Justin Lloyd, all lowercase, 2 L's in Lloyd. I'm Justin Lloyd. Again, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, and Periscope. JP, do you have any social media info you'd like to share?
J_Radsaw. What's that? Snapchat and Instagram, and JPSLIM on Periscope. And,
Boom.
99-cent dick pics. Just reach out. You get your money's worth.
You really do.
Yeah.
I mean, you really, for the 99 cent, the quality, like he's got an iPhone X and he uses portrait mode. I mean, it's phenomenal.
It's a handsome penis.
The lighting is great. I mean, really, the best dollar I've ever spent.
It's well proportioned,
You think being we podcast together that I would get them for free, but he's a man of dignity. He's a man of honor. He's like, man, look, I can't give you something for free I wouldn't give anyone else. So just like you, I had to pay.
I got to pay the bills. So
I don't understand what's growing out the side of it, but aside from that, the photos were phenomenal.
Well, the modern medical community, man, it's a cult just like these round earth scientists. If you saw how many people died from medical malfeasance in a year, you would go to a JoJo on Ep Street just like I do and get holistic treatments.
So you're blaming JoJo for the wart growing out the side of your penis?
No, I'm just saying he's treating it for me.
Okay.
Dr. JoJo.
All right. Well, hey, at least you're getting treatment.
Yeah.
But we'll see you tomorrow for Mail Call.
I can't wait for that.
Yeah. Don't forget to go leave your questions. If you just found us and you're wondering what Mail Call is, it's just the one time a week where we answer listener questions. So you can leave it in the comments of this. Just hashtag it Mail Call so we see it. But otherwise, you can go to last week's Mail Call and leave it there.
Yeah. Right now it's time for us to go get some new comic books.
No doubt. And we will see you tomorrow. I'm Justin.
I'm JP.
And we're the Podcasting Dead.